men and have them killing other Africans and so on. And that is the reason. They don't know themselves. They don't know who they are. It is easy for them to be led astray. For a few dollars, you know, talk about Judas, the 30 pieces of silver. A lot of that is happening. It happened in South Africa, remember, when they had set up the whites had set up what they call the Bantu stands, and they had these little tin guard rulers who they would put over these barren lands, more or less areas where, you know, unfertile lands, and they just threw a whole set of hundreds of thousands of Africans together and said, well, okay, you're the ruler. Here, I'm going to give you an army. Here are some weapons and so on. And the whites in South Africa under apartheid was able by that means to get a set of greedy, selfish, unpatriotic African people, African at least in looks, to dominate the others and to keep them under oppression to serve the white man. Well, at least it lasted for quite a while, until the African National Congress, under the leadership of people like Nelson and Winnie Mandela, particularly Winnie, who was out of prison, had to carry the fight while Nelson was in jail, and Walter Sisulu, who was also in jail, and Mbeki, who was out of prison, and others, to make the whites understand, well, hey, I think it might be in your best interest to hand over political power to us. Otherwise, you may lose everything that you have. And eventually, with international support, the white people did see it. So, and by the way, this pamphlet was issued by the chairman of Curtis McCalmon Campbell of Buxton, what we know as the Nyabingi resistance. And it was distributed in Buxton so that those African men who have courage and who know themselves, who are not afraid of standing up and fighting for their rights, will get more and more information and be more grounded in the rightness of their cause. Garvey says, in the fight to reach the top, the oppressed have always been encumbered by the traitors of their own race, made up of those of little faith and those who are generally susceptible to bribery for the selling out of the rights of their own people. Does this ring a bell? I'm sure it does. When they locked him up, eventually, they got, as he said, some traitors from among him. They got him to buy ships over the price that it was worth and all kinds of stuff. And eventually, they convicted him of mail fraud, which is something that they usually do, going with these political charges. Like they have Mark Benchcop in prison for so-called treason. They convicted him of mail fraud in 1923. Garvey had been an affront to the white racists. And when they imprisoned him, they said, quote, "We have the tiger, the lion is in the cage. And Marcus Garvey said, yes, you have the lion, but I left many cubs in the bush. And the children of Curtis McCalmon Campbell, the Nyabingi resistance of Buxton, are some of the cubs that have been left in the bush. And all those great leaders, Patrice Lumumba, Kwame Nkrumah, Malcolm X, Kwame Ture, they are all children, all the cubs that Garvey left, who continue to fight for truth and justice. Okay, so Garvey clearly had organized people as no one else had ever done. 4 million in 40 countries, 1,200 chapters. It had never been done before, and up to now, it has not been done. He instilled in them a new self-dignity and pride, and that is evolving up to now, as you may notice. And one of the things he had said was to look for a black king to be crowned. And he said that would be the day of deliverance. We know in 1930, Rastafari Makinen of Ethiopia was crowned Emperor of Ethiopia, Haile Selassie I. And Rastafarians took that event as fulfillment of Garvey's prophecy. and rejected the white king, King George, I think it was at the time, and recognized that here, this is our king, a black king from the oldest country on earth, Ethiopia, and we will pay homage to the black king. And that was, I think, one of the early signals that this was the people from the Caribbean, began in the Caribbean, who were going to cleanse themselves of all the nastiness and the inferiority that had been implanted in our minds about ourselves. And it has been a great journey since then. I am proud to say that I am one of the fruit of that journey. Okay. Now, Garvey said this. This is the book Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey. Everyone should get it. Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey, edited by Amy Jacques Garvey. And this is from Maxwell Macmillan, Canada, Maxwell Macmillan International, Publishing, New York, Oxford, Singapore, Sydney, many publishers. It was copyrighted in 1923 by Amy Jacques Garvey. That was his wife. But listen to this. Purpose of creation. The man or woman who has no confidence in self is an unfortunate being and is really a misfit in creation. God Almighty created each and every one of us for a place in the world, and for the least of us to think that we were created only to be what we are and not what we can make ourselves is to impute an improper motive to the Creator for creating us. God Almighty created us all to be free. That the Negro race became a race of slaves was not the fault of God Almighty, the Divine Master. It was the fault of the race. Sloth, neglect, indifference caused us to be slaves. Confidence, conviction, action will cause us to be free men today. That's on page 37. And on page 38 he says, for a man to know himself is for him to feel that for him there is no human master. For him nature is his servant, and whatsoever he wills in nature, that shall be his reward. If he wills to be a pygmy, a serf, or a slave, that shall he be. If he wills to be a real man in possession of the things common to man, then he shall be his own sovereign. When man fails to grasp his authority, he sinks to the level of the lower animals, and whatsoever the real man bids him do, even as if it were of the lower animals, that much shall he do. If he says go, he goes. If he says come, he comes. By this command he performs the functions of life, even as by a similar command the mule, the horse, the cow perform the will of their masters. We know many of them right now in Guyana. For the last 400 years, the Negro has been in the position of being commanded, even as the lower animals are controlled. Our race has been without a will, without a purpose of its own, for all this length of time. Because of that, we have developed few men who are able to understand the strenuousness of the age in which we live. Where can we find in this race of ours real men? Men of character, men of purpose, men of confidence, men of faith, men who really know themselves. I have come across so many weaklings who profess to be leaders, and in the test I have found them but the slaves of a nobler class. They perform the will of their masters without question. To me, a man has no master but God. Man in his authority is a sovereign lord. As for the individual man, so of the individual race. This feeling makes man so courageous, so bold, as to make it possible for his brother to intrude upon his rights. So few of us can understand what it takes to make a man, the man who will never say die, the man who will never give up, the man who will never depend upon others to do for him what he ought to do for himself, the man who will not blame God, who will not blame nature, who will not blame fate for his condition, but the man who will go out and make conditions to suit himself. Oh, how disgusting life becomes when on every hand you hear people who bear your image, who bear your resemblance, telling you that they cannot make it, that fate is against them, that they cannot get a chance. If 400 million Africans can only get to know themselves, to know that in them is a sovereign power, is an authority that is absolute, then in the next 24 hours, we will have a new race. We would have a nation, an empire, resurrected, not from the will of others to see us rise, but from our own determination to rise, irrespective of what the world thinks. This is some of the philosophy and opinions of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. I hope that you are able to get some of your younger children, teenagers, to sit and spend this time with us. Because I hope that in the future, as long as I am allowed to speak on your behalf, I would be able to do what is in your interest. That is, that all of us together will be further educated and strengthened in purpose and will, and to do that which we ought to do. Okay, before I open the phones, let me happily announce to you, remember I said that we were to get, I had to get $140,000, quite a bit of money, huh? And you know what? You, our viewers, came through. Yes, you did. Persons came to the studio here and brought monies. Some brought 10,000, some brought 1,000. Some called me at my home, some dropped off envelopes at my home. And the total amount I collected over a short period of just about 2 weeks, $172,000. I think this is a great victory. We have shown that we can and we will defend our rights. We will defend our right of freedom of speech. You have shown, you the viewers, that you believe that what this program does, what comes out in this program is important, is vital, and it's the first time in the country that we have had something of this magnitude happen in the media, where the viewers have now decided that they will pay off a back debt, pretty large sum of 140, which is half. I still owe the station 139,000. I paid 140,000, and you subscribed $172,000. I think you can all shout for joy and cheer, because it is an expression of the common unity of our people here in Guyana. And I'm happy, I'm proud to share this moment with you. I mean, when I came off, I said, well, you know, it's left up to you. You will decide. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to, and I was really happy. Businessmen, public servants, doctors, lawyers, journalists, teachers, a housewife, I can recall, who met me in the supermarket. A retired gentleman who called to my home and brought his contribution. Other professional ministers of religion, and persons of other professions. Some who could afford 1,000. I think I had said that we were not going to accept less than 1,000 because it was such a large amount and we didn't want too much of the traffic. And if you really believe that this program was important, then you could find $1,000, the cost of what? 4 Vitamalt. If you can give up 4 Vitamalt a month, 1 a week, then you can continue to subscribe to this program, because we have to continue